I recently came across an intriguing six-wheel drive truck, and I was asked if I wanted to take it. If I passed, it was destined for the scrapyard, to be dismantled and sold as scrap metal. But I couldn't let that happen. This isn't just any truck. It's an old Dongfeng model, full of history and character. Even the sound of the door opening carries a mechanical weight that's rare to find these days. The cab has a unique charm, almost like stepping into the set of an RPG, with its vintage gauges and utilitarian design. The 6 forward gears make it even more special, a rarity in trucks like this. When I inspected it more closely, I found the roof and bed had only minimal rust, much less than I expected for a truck of its age. Inside, the condition was surprisingly good, clean and tidy, with no signs of neglect. What truly stood out was the sturdiness of the frame. It's far more solid than my previous truck, which immediately made me feel this project was worth pursuing. After some back-and-forth negotiations with the owner, I managed to strike a deal and brought the truck home. It's a 6-ton beast that has been sitting idle for years, untouched and unused. Restoring it is going to be a monumental task, but I've always loved a good challenge, and this one feels deeply rewarding already. The truck is equipped with a straight 6 gasoline engine, though its horsepower remains a mystery. It's definitely seen better days with layers of dust and years of inactivity taking their toll. But what fascinated me was the inclusion of a hand crank for starting it, a relic from an era of simple, mechanical ingenuity. My first task was to inspect the engine, checking for rust, corrosion, or any signs that it might be seized. Fortunately, the internals looked promising, giving me hope for a successful revival. I replaced the old, long-dead battery with a new one and faced another challenge. The original key was missing. To bypass this, I connected the ignition wires directly, a simple but effective workaround. To my delight, the engine cranked without hesitation. This meant the internal components weren't rusted or locked up, significantly increasing the chances of getting it running again. The next hurdle was the electrical system. Decades of wear had left many connections oxidized, so I carefully sanded every contact point to restore good conductivity. Key areas like the ignition and lights received extra attention to ensure everything worked smoothly. To test the fuel system, I rigged up a temporary auxiliary fuel tank, which would allow me to check if fuel was flowing properly to the engine. Now came the most exciting moment, attempting to start the engine. With everything in place, and a bit of luck on my side, I turned it over and heard the deep rumble of the engine coming to life. It was an exhilarating moment, proof that this truck still had plenty of life left in it, despite its age and condition. Though the engine is now functional, the signs of wear and tear are still evident. The engine bay is a time capsule, showing decades of accumulated grime and rust, and several parts of the body need extensive repairs. I'm planning to strip it down to its bare bones and rebuild it as close to its original condition as possible. Restoring a 6-ton truck is no small feat. It requires time, effort, and no small amount of patience. The next stage involves addressing the rusted sections of the body, refurbishing the chassis, and restoring the paintwork to match its original factory finish. Every part will need to be cleaned, repaired, or replaced. While it's a massive undertaking, I'm confident that with the right tools and enough dedication, this classic machine will shine once more. This journey is about more than just fixing a truck. It's about preserving a piece of history. The craftsmanship of vehicles from this era is something we rarely see today, and it deserves to be celebrated. Step by step, I'm bringing this Dongfeng truck back to life, honoring its legacy while giving it a second chance to roam the roads. There's still a lot of work ahead, but with each turn of the wrench, I'm getting closer to my vision. A fully restored 6-ton testament to the enduring strength of old-school engineering. I've finally found a way to tackle this project on my own, and I couldn't be more excited. But before we get into it, let me remind you of one important thing. Safety always comes first, so grab your protective glasses. Honestly, I'm glad I had a solid breakfast this morning because this task is no joke. Handling something like this alone takes a bit of strength, patience, and maybe just a little stubbornness. As the afternoon wore on, the sun started dipping below the horizon in my small coastal town. The golden light illuminated the truck I'd been working on, a sturdy old piece of machinery full of charm and character. My first goal was to paint the crane in my favorite shade of green before nightfall. This step wasn't just about looks, it was about staying on schedule for the dismantling work planned for the next day. With a quick pace and a lot of focus, I managed to finish the job just as the streetlights flickered on. It felt great to see the crane transform with fresh paint, but that was just the beginning. The real work was ahead, completely disassembling the truck and restoring it to its original, pristine condition. It's a challenge I've been looking forward to, though I know it won't be easy. Despite being decades old, the truck's bed and frame have aged surprisingly well. Sure, there's some surface rust on the bolts, but the protective caps are still intact. That kind of durability speaks to the quality of materials used back in the day. Separating the truck's bed from the chassis for the first time in years felt like uncovering a piece of history. When I inspected the underside, I was pleasantly surprised to find the frame largely intact. Aside from some minor rust and layers of dirt, the structural integrity was excellent, an encouraging sign for what's to come. Even the tires were originals, straight from the factory. The only issue? Those massive bolts holding everything together were a nightmare to remove. It quickly became clear that I'd need some heavy-duty tools specifically designed for truck repair. But that's all part of the process. This is no ordinary project, it's a labor of love. I plan to strip the truck down piece by piece, refurbish every component, and give it a stunning new paint job to restore its former glory. The engine itself is a straight-six gasoline beast. It's enormous, but it has a simple mechanical design, free from any modern electronics. For a machine enthusiast like me, that simplicity is a blessing. It's just me, my tools, and the raw mechanics of the engine. Every crank, every bolt, every connection has a story to tell, and I'm here to bring it all back to life. This restoration isn't just about fixing a truck. It's about honoring the craftsmanship of a bygone era. Vehicles like this were built to last, and even after decades of wear and tear, the quality still shines through. But time hasn't been entirely kind. There are signs of water damage, some rusted joints, and the inevitable oil leaks. These imperfections only add to the challenge, making the restoration process even more rewarding. Bit by bit, I'll dismantle every part, clean every surface, and rebuild this truck into something truly special. It's going to take time, effort, and a whole lot of dedication, but I'm ready for it. There's something incredibly satisfying about breathing new life into an old machine. I can already imagine the moment when the engine roars to life again and the truck rolls down the road just as it was meant to. This is more than a project, it's a journey, and I can't wait to see it through to the end. The engine is held in place by just 4 bolts, a design far simpler than the setup on many modern vehicles, or even on my old clunker. It's clear the engineers from back then had mechanics in mind, making it relatively straightforward to take apart. With that in mind, I rolled up my sleeves and got to work, determined to completely dismantle the engine. After a fair bit of effort, I managed to take it apart and clean it thoroughly. As I examined the components, I found some wear on the valve plates and a few piston rings that were stuck, likely from years of inactivity. These issues need to be addressed carefully to ensure a smooth restoration process. Luckily, I spotted the problems in time. Had I missed them, this engine might have been a lost cause. The real game changer, though, was finding the original repair manual for this truck. It's a treasure trove of detailed information covering every component of the vehicle. With it, I can follow the exact specifications to bring this truck back to life, just as it was designed. After cleaning and inspecting the parts, I gave the engine a fresh coat of paint. It's now gleaming in its original factory color, which, while not exactly my personal favorite, is an authentic throwback to how it looked when it rolled off the assembly line. Finding all the original parts for this project was a challenge, but I managed to track down every single piece needed to restore the engine. Now comes the delicate task of reassembling it all. With everything in place, the moment of truth will be firing it up. At this point, it's all about crossing my fingers and hoping for the best. This restoration is more than just putting an engine back together. It's about preserving a piece of history. After carefully following the original manual and restoring the EQ6100 gasoline engine to its factory specifications, I felt a sense of accomplishment like no other. Hearing it roar back to life after so many years of dormancy was a milestone. But this is just the beginning. Next up, the chassis. The materials used in this truck are a testament to its era. Decades of use have left their mark, with some surface rust and minor oil leaks visible on the chassis. Yet the core structure remains remarkably solid. Stripping the truck down to its bare frame revealed a design that's simple, robust, and built to last. It's almost like a tractor in its simplicity, making it a dream to work on for someone like me, who enjoys a hands-on mechanical challenge. That said, removing some of the larger components, like the wheels and axles, was no easy task. The bolts were stubborn, and I quickly realized that I'd need specialized tools to make the job more manageable. The summer heat added another layer of difficulty. Sweat was pouring down, and progress slowed under the relentless sun. But then I remembered a little gadget my wife had given me, a portable cooling device designed to keep me comfortable while working outdoors. It's a lifesaver, dropping the air temperature around me significantly. The cooling sensation is like biting into a chilled slice of watermelon on a sweltering day. With the device keeping me cool, I was able to push through the heat and keep working steadily. Now the truck is stripped down to its essentials. The engine has been restored, the wheels and axles removed, and the chassis laid bare. It's incredible to see how this truck was built for off-road capability. Judging by its design, it must have been a powerhouse in its prime. Piece by piece, I'm dismantling the vehicle, cleaning every part, and planning the next steps for its rebuild. This restoration is no small task, but it's one I'm deeply committed to. It's not just about getting the truck running, it's about bringing it back to its former glory, preserving its history, and celebrating the craftsmanship of a bygone era. By the time I'm finished, this classic machine will shine as if it just rolled out of the factory. It's a lot of work, but the reward will be worth every ounce of effort. This isn't just a project, it's a journey, and I'm excited to see it through to the end. This truck is in desperate need of some TLC, starting with its rusted and worn-out components. The engine pan, for instance, hadn't been cleaned since the truck was purchased, and this was my first chance to give it a proper, deep clean. Some parts were heavily corroded, but thankfully, the chassis itself showed no major structural issues. I decided to send the chassis out for a rust-proof coating, knowing I'd need to carefully inspect each part when it returned, especially once the weather cooled down a bit. Working in this heat has been no joke, but my portable smart air conditioner has been a game changer. It's app-controlled and automatically adjusts the temperature, making long work days in the sun much more manageable. Just as I was wrapping up my prep work, a flatbed truck arrived to transport the chassis to the shop for derusting and coating. On a day like this, the cooling gadget was more than a convenience, it was a lifesaver. It's as refreshing as biting into a cold slice of watermelon on a scorching summer afternoon. With the rust-proofing process underway, I was ready to tackle the next steps. The shop did an outstanding job derusting the chassis, flipping it entirely to reach every corner. After removing years of grime and corrosion, they coated it with a protective layer, giving it a fresh and durable finish. When the chassis came back, it looked almost brand new, its glossy paint shining in the sunlight. This kind of treatment is essential for preserving the longevity of a vehicle like this, especially given the years it's spent exposed to the elements. Upon inspection, the freshly treated chassis looked great. There were no major issues, just a few worn parts that needed replacing. The quality of these older vehicles never ceases to amaze me. The materials used back then were built to last. I've already ordered the necessary replacement parts, and they're on their way. Once they arrive, I'll add the finishing touches with paint and prepare for the final assembly. This restoration has been an intricate process, breaking down every component for detailed inspection and cleaning. The wheels, for example, were so rusted that a few wouldn't even turn. The bearings were caked with old grease, requiring a significant amount of elbow grease to clean. Each wheel had to be disassembled and checked thoroughly. While some components showed signs of aging, they were surprisingly salvageable with a little work. For parts like brake pads, sanding off the buildup was enough to restore them to working condition, while the bearings needed fresh lubrication before reassembly. As I moved from one part to the next, I called on a bit of extra help. A younger version of me, a burst of energy and determination, seemed to take over, making the seemingly endless tasks feel more manageable. There's something deeply satisfying about restoring a vehicle like this, knowing that every bit of effort is bringing it back to life. This project is more than just fixing up an old truck. It's about respecting the craftsmanship of the past. The simplicity and durability of the design make it a joy to work on, even with the challenges. Piece by piece, the truck is slowly returning to its former glory. Every cleaned and restored component feels like a small victory, a step closer to the final vision of a fully rebuilt machine. When the replacement parts arrive, I'll dive into the final assembly process. The truck will soon be back in action, looking and performing as if it just rolled out of the factory. It's been a long road filled with hard work and patience, but the results will be worth every ounce of effort. Restoring this classic isn't just about functionality. It's about bringing history back to life and honoring a vehicle that was built to last. I can't wait for the moment when it's fully assembled, ready to hit the road once again. Taking on this project solo has been a real test of patience, strength, and determination. Working on a six-wheel drive truck isn't exactly a light task. Every part is heavier, more complex, and takes twice the effort to handle. After what feels like months of constant effort, I've finally reached a major milestone. It's time to reinstall the engine. At this point, I've handled so many components that I feel like even one more wheel might be too much. The work has been physically demanding, and while my energy isn't quite what it used to be, I'm still pushing forward. The engine is now fully assembled and installed in the chassis, which has already been restored. The next step is to reinstall the fuel tank so I can try starting the engine again. Fingers crossed. Wish me luck. This engine was overhauled and briefly tested before I let it rest for a while. Firing it up again today and having it roar to life on the first try was an incredible feeling. It's moments like this that make all the hard work worth it. Of course, the engine is still in its break-in period, so I'm letting it idle for now instead of revving it too hard. The careful, methodical approach ensures that everything runs smoothly as the truck takes its first steps toward being road-ready. I found this truck in a salvage yard north of the bridge. It's a Dongfeng model, and I felt an instant connection to it the moment I saw it. There's a personal story here, and that connection made the decision to buy it an easy one. From the moment I brought it home, I knew this would be a long journey. The restoration started with repainting the cab, patching up damaged areas, and replacing the rotten wooden sections. Each step has been a labor of love, bringing this truck back to life piece by piece. So far, I've completely overhauled the engine and restored the entire chassis, taking everything apart down to the bolts and rebuilding it to factory specifications. If you don't believe how much work has gone into this, I've documented the progress in previous videos. Now I'm down to the final stages: repairing the cab, addressing the smaller damaged areas, and preparing for the finishing touches. It's tough work, but seeing it all come together has been nothing short of incredible. Restoration like this isn't for the faint of heart. It demands patience, persistence, and creativity. At times, I've joked about summoning a clone to share the workload, but it's all me, inching closer to the finish line. Some parts, like the engine cover, were in such bad shape that I had to fully dismantle, clean, and restore them from scratch. The rusted areas have been treated, and the dents have been hammered out until the surfaces are smooth and ready for paint. The cab now looks like it belongs on a truck again. Quick tip: if you're tackling work like this, always wear protective gear, especially goggles. Safety first. With the rust removed, the dents fixed, and the body prepped, it's time for the final step: applying a fresh coat of paint in the truck's original factory color. This isn't just about aesthetics. It's about preserving the authenticity and character of the vehicle. Once the paint dries, I'll be ready for the final reassembly. Restoring this truck has been more than just a mechanical project. It's a personal journey, a chance to revive a piece of history that deserves another shot at life. Every cleaned, repaired, or replaced component brings me closer to the moment when this truck is whole again. Soon it will roll out onto the road with all the pride and shine it had when it first left the factory. The end is in sight, and I couldn't be more excited to see how far this project has come and how much life this old truck still has left to give. I've finally completed painting the truck according to its original factory design, giving it the same authentic look it had decades ago. The next step is a critical one, using a heavy-duty tool to reattach the front end of the truck, a task that requires both precision and patience. One of the more intricate jobs involves resetting the odometer to 0. This old-school mechanical gauge is purely analog, with no electronics to complicate the process. I had to disassemble it, adjust the numbers carefully to the desired setting, and then reassemble it. It's one of those small but essential details that add to the authenticity of the restoration. After days of labor, the truck is finally starting to come together, and I'm thrilled to see it take on the shape of its former self. The wiring on this truck is a mix of simplicity and complexity. It doesn't have the overwhelming systems you'd find in modern vehicles, but there were still enough wires to make me pause and strategize. Thankfully, I managed to track down the original factory schematics, which proved to be a lifesaver. With the guide in hand, I was able to reconnect every wire quickly and correctly. During the process, I even came across an exciting find, a brand new original stock headlight, a rare piece of equipment for a vehicle of this age. It's these little discoveries that make the journey even more special. With the front end now fully assembled, the restoration is about 75% complete. This Dongfeng 6-wheel drive truck has undergone an incredible transformation, and it's deeply satisfying to see the progress. The interior, once neglected, has been thoroughly cleaned and is now spotless and well organized. Sitting behind the wheel again after all this effort makes me feel a sense of pride and accomplishment. It feels like it's time to test its capabilities and see how all the hard work has paid off. The restoration process has been a long and rewarding journey. Next, I'll be tackling one of the toughest challenges yet, repairing the severely rusted sections underneath the truck bed. These areas have been particularly troublesome, but I'm determined to restore them to their original strength and appearance. On the bright side, the brakes and clutch are now fully functional, and the truck is capable of running smoothly. It has plenty of power, though I must admit it doesn't quite match the practicality and straightforwardness of my uncle's old tractor. However, the restored interior makes up for it. It's clean, polished, and speaks volumes about the care and attention that's gone into this project. What makes this restoration so meaningful is the personal connection I feel to the truck. I found it at a salvage yard near the bridge, sitting among a sea of forgotten machines. It immediately stood out to me with its nostalgic design, rugged build, and 6-wheel drive system. Even the sound of the doors opening carried a sense of history and craftsmanship. It felt like a relic of a bygone era that deserved a second chance, and I knew I couldn't let it fade into obscurity. Every step of this process has been a labor of love, from stripping the rust and repainting the body, to restoring the engine and replacing old components. I've poured my heart into bringing this truck back to life. Each piece I restore feels like uncovering a piece of history, and I'm reminded of the incredible craftsmanship that went into building vehicles like this. It's not just about functionality, it's about preserving the legacy of a time when machines were built to last. Now, as I prepare for the final stages of this restoration, I can't help but feel proud of how far this truck has come. Soon it will roll onto the road with the same pride and shine it had when it first left the factory. The journey hasn't been easy, but every ounce of effort has been worth it. This project isn't just about restoring a truck. It's about honoring the past and proving that even something old and forgotten can find new life and purpose. I can't wait to see it hit the road and reclaim its place in the world. This truck is an impressive 6 tons, 12,000 pounds, and hides a straight 6 gasoline engine under its weathered exterior. I don't know its exact horsepower, but its design and build speak volumes about its history. Sitting idle for years, it has accumulated layers of rust and grime, though fortunately, the damage isn't as severe as I initially feared. After thoroughly inspecting the vehicle and chatting with the owner, I managed to strike a deal, paying 2.8 cents per pound. Restoring a truck like this is no small task, but I couldn't resist the challenge. The truck's sturdy frame, despite some rust, remains a testament to the quality of the materials used when it was built. What makes this project even more personal for me is the fact that the truck and I are almost the same age, a detail that inspired me to commit to bringing it back to life. My plan is to restore it to its original factory condition, honoring its legacy while giving it a fresh start. To handle the massive components, I built a simple crane to make lifting parts easier and save myself from unnecessary strain. The process began with disassembling the truck, piece by piece. Over several days, I removed the truck bed, which had held up surprisingly well despite decades of wear. Some areas were corroded, but overall, the quality of the materials ensured that it remained structurally sound. The chassis, in particular, exceeded my expectations. Aside from some surface rust, there were no major structural issues to address. The engine, an EQ6100-1 model, is a classic straight-six gasoline powerhouse, secured with just 4 bolts. When I began dismantling it, I discovered wear on the connecting rod bearings and some stuck piston rings. These issues could have been disastrous if left unaddressed, but luckily I caught them in time. To my surprise, I managed to track down the original repair manual for the truck, a goldmine of information that included detailed schematics for every part. This manual proved invaluable, guiding me through each step of the process. With the manual in hand and a bit of determination, I gave the engine a complete overhaul. Every component was cleaned meticulously, inspected for damage, and either repaired or replaced with original factory parts. Sourcing these parts wasn't easy, but I managed to find everything I needed. After the engine was fully reassembled, I painted it with a factory-matched color to restore its original look. Despite not being a professional mechanic, having the right tools, resources, and a solid plan made the job achievable. After decades of neglect, the EQ6100-1 engine was brought back to life. Starting it up for the first time was a thrilling moment. A blend of pride and relief, the engine purred with a smoothness that made all the effort worthwhile. Restoring this engine was a significant milestone, but the journey is far from over. The next focus is the chassis, which requires just as much attention and care. The bolts on the chassis were massive and deeply rusted, taking a lot of time and effort to remove. Once disassembled, I found the materials were remarkably robust, showing just how well-built vehicles were in that era. My next steps include thoroughly cleaning the frame, addressing all rusted areas, and replacing critical components like rubber seals and gaskets. These seemingly small details are vital to ensuring the truck's longevity and reliability. Restoring this truck has been one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. Every step, whether dismantling rusted parts, sourcing original components, or reassembling the engine, feels like I'm breathing new life into a forgotten piece of history. There's something deeply satisfying about seeing this old truck gradually return to its former glory. It's not just about making it functional again, it's about preserving its legacy and honoring the craftsmanship of a bygone era. The work isn't over yet, but with each bolt tightened and each part restored, the vision becomes clearer. Soon this truck will be fully operational and back on the road, looking and performing as it did when it first rolled off the assembly line. This journey has been challenging, but every ounce of effort has been worth it. Restoring this truck isn't just a project, it's a passion, a connection to the past, and a celebration of what's possible with dedication and hard work. In just over a day and a half, I managed to completely disassemble the entire chassis, carefully cleaning every component and ensuring no detail was overlooked. The next steps involved tackling the 6 axles and 2 fuel tanks. The design of this truck is refreshingly simple, easier to work with than my uncle's old tractor. It's built without the complex systems of modern vehicles, which makes the restoration process feel like a throwback to simpler times. Using a 13-meter flatbed truck, I transported all the chassis components to a sandblasting shop for a complete rust removal treatment. At the shop, every part underwent thorough sandblasting, which stripped away decades of rust and grime. Seeing the components emerge clean and smooth after the treatment was deeply satisfying. They looked almost new. I brought the parts back home, ready for the next stage of restoration. The sandblasting process cost me 1,200 yuan, and while it wasn't cheap, it was worth every penny to breathe new life into these old parts. After inspecting the clean chassis components, I found no major structural issues, just a few worn-out pieces that will need replacing. The steel used to build this truck is incredible, durable and robust, far superior to what you'd find in modern vehicles. It's clear why this truck has stood the test of time. To ensure it stays protected, I immediately applied a layer of black anti-corrosion paint to all the sandblasted components. Some of the wheels were badly rusted, and the grease in the bearings had degraded to the point of being almost unusable. I decided to take apart each wheel, inspect the bearings, and restore them to working order. With the help of my imaginary younger self, a version of me filled with the energy and determination of a 17-year-old, I tackled the task of cleaning and refurbishing all 6 wheels and their 12 bearings. The bearings were cleaned thoroughly, the old grease was removed, and fresh lubricant was applied to ensure smooth rotation. One by one, the wheels were reassembled, and each part was inspected meticulously. The satisfaction of putting a wheel back together and watching it spin smoothly is unmatched. Working on such a massive project alone has been both rewarding and exhausting. This truck's 6 drive axles make everything heavier and more complicated. After months of hard work, I finally reached the stage where I could reinstall the engine. Following the original repair manual, I carefully rebuilt both the engine and the chassis, ensuring that everything was restored to factory specifications. However, the job isn't finished yet. There's still the front end to repair and the heavily corroded truck bed to restore. The wooden planks of the truck bed, worn down by more than 3 decades of exposure to the elements, posed a unique challenge. Despite their age, they held up surprisingly well, a testament to the quality of materials used back then. Piece by piece, I dismantled the bed, treated the rusted metal, and prepared everything for reassembly. Each step, though tedious, felt like I was honoring the truck's legacy and craftsmanship. Thankfully, the steel undercarriage remains solid, with no significant corrosion. This project has been a labor of love, physically demanding but immensely satisfying. Every bolt I tighten and every part I clean brings me closer to restoring the truck to its former glory. It's not just about repairing a vehicle, it's about preserving a piece of history. Each component tells a story of durability and craftsmanship, and bringing that story back to life is a privilege. The road to restoration has been long, but I'm finally nearing the finish line. With each part cleaned, repaired, and reassembled, the truck is beginning to resemble its former self. Soon it will be ready to roll again, and I can't wait to see this piece of history back on the road, proudly showcasing the hard work and dedication that went into its revival. This project isn't just about fixing an old truck. It's about bringing a classic machine back to life and giving it a second chance to shine. This restoration is a testament to the incredible quality of the original materials used to build this truck. The cab, now fully restored, stands as proof of its durability and design. Every dent and damaged section has been meticulously repaired, and every imperfection has been smoothed out. The restoration process followed the original factory design to ensure the truck retains its authenticity. Seeing it in its fully repainted state brings a deep sense of satisfaction. The next step is tackling the final touches using some heavy-duty tools to bring it all together. During the process, I stumbled upon the truck's original structural diagram, an invaluable find that turned out to be a game-changer. Once sold for just a fraction of $1, I managed to buy a copy for much more, but it was worth every penny. This diagram became my guide, simplifying many complicated repairs. Resetting the odometer was one of those tasks that initially seemed daunting, but turned out to be straightforward with the right reference. On classic vehicles like this, it's as simple as dismantling, adjusting, and reassembling. However, finding all the necessary parts and instructions was a journey in itself, requiring persistence and patience. The truck bed proved to be one of the most challenging parts to restore. Years of exposure had left sections of it rusted through, with some parts reduced to flakes of metal. To save on costs, I carefully cut away the rotted sections and sourced a replacement panel. I worked with a local workshop where a large bending machine was used to fabricate a new panel that fit perfectly. It was so precise that I needed a hammer to gently tap it into place during installation. Once the bed was reassembled, I treated the exposed areas with a rust-inhibiting primer to ensure long-lasting durability. The next step was replacing the wooden floorboards. I visited a lumberyard to purchase new planks and had them cut to the exact dimensions. To save money, I once again called on my imaginary younger self, a version of me full of boundless energy and determination, to sand the wood surfaces by hand. After sanding, I applied a protective coat to shield the wood from future damage, followed by a second layer of finish to give it a polished and durable look. Piece by piece, the truck bed began to take shape. I used a special red paint for the frame and matched the exterior paint to the original factory green. Every brushstroke and layer of paint added to the truck's transformation. Seeing it all come together was a deeply rewarding moment, though the journey to this point was far from easy. Originally, I had hoped to finish the restoration much sooner, but working alone on a project of this scale proved more challenging than I anticipated. The size and complexity of the truck made each step labor-intensive, and restoring it during the cold winter months added even more obstacles. Despite the setbacks, I stayed determined, and finally the truck is complete. This Dongfeng truck, a relic of a bygone era, has now been fully restored to its former glory. Every detail, from the cab to the chassis, has been painstakingly repaired, repainted, and reassembled to honor its original design. The restoration wasn't just about bringing an old machine back to life. It was about preserving a piece of history and appreciating the craftsmanship that went into its creation. This truck and I share a unique bond, as it's nearly the same age as I am. That connection made the restoration even more personal and meaningful. The process tested my patience, endurance, and resourcefulness at every step. But looking at the finished product, I know that every long night and every ounce of effort was worth it. And now the moment has finally arrived. The truck is ready to hit the road, showcasing its renewed strength and beauty. Let's take it for a spin and see this incredible machine in action. This is more than just a truck. It's a story of dedication, persistence, and love for restoring the past. It's been a journey, one that I'll never forget, and now this truck is ready to tell its story on the open road.